Good morning. Thank you for being here with us. And listen up, if you are a parent or perhaps a parent-to-be or at some point in your life planning to become a parent or hoping to, then this is what you're going to have to be listening to this morning, because Amina Diab is with us, who is a child psychologist. Good morning to you, Amina.
Morning, Amina.
Good morning, Mark and Sally.
Oh, it's nice to have you on the show. Now, Amina, tell us a little bit about yourself. So you're a child psychologist. I think... What is that? People don't know what that is necessarily. Like, what? I mean,
tell us what it is.
Do you just deal with children or with parents, or what is it that you do?
Mm-hmm. So, a child psychologist basically studies or tries to understand the behavior of children, and that's my job. That's what I try to do. Not all psychologists deal with parents, and that's what I realized throughout my experience, is that I needed to focus more on not only dealing with the child, but also focusing on what parents can offer the child.
Yeah.
And this is why I've furthered my degrees into positive parenting and positive discipline.
This must be a difficult thing, because often parents will, you've got your child, you don't want people interfering in how you bring up your child and stuff like that. So how do you deal with that? Do people come to you and say, look, I'm having trouble, my child is a bit of a problem and I need your help? Or is it just more general kind of advice that anybody can use?
Well, actually, that's very interesting that you asked that, because I feel like when I first started, I found it very hard to tap into people and tell them, listen, hey, I can help you, because it's something very personal. Parenting is very personal. Mm-hmm. So I started off with just a few workshops and just saying, hey, listen, if you have the time, just come and listen to what we have to say. And I think with time, we're starting to tap into the taboo of speaking about children and speaking about the behavior of the child. And parents are learning more that they can reach out to professionals to help them. I mean, it's a really tough job, and sometimes we all need help. Because
with parents, the thing is, like most parents, you don't go to parent school, do you? For the most part, people don't go to school to have children. And then you have this child, and you only have your background, what you remember your parents doing with you.
And sometimes that's not necessarily the best way.
No, exactly. So that's really interesting. So you said positive parenting and positive discipline. What is that?
Okay, so positive parenting, it's a different form or different discipline of parenting where we don't focus on the punishment itself, but rather understanding why the child is behaving this way and what forms and tools that we can use with the child to constantly make them feel like they feel belonging and significance while disciplining them at the same time.
Right. Okay.
So are we talking about not smacking a child?
That's exactly what I mean.
Yeah.
So the ship is out of the question.
No ship.
Traditional the belt, the whatever comes out.
Okay, so why is that a bad thing? As if we don't really need to talk about it, but I think people do need to know why a slap or a ship or whatever isn't perhaps the best way of disciplining your child. So why is that a bad thing, and what are more positive ways?
Yeah, what's the alternative?
Okay, well, generally, I think everybody knows this already, that when the smack or the slap, it affects their emotional development. I mean, when it comes to their confidence level, when it comes to their ability of their self-esteem. So that's one thing. Another thing is that it also encourages them to use this physical aggression as well in school. So that leads to bullying, and I hope we can talk about that a bit later.
Yeah.
That's amongst several things. Also, when they grow up, they'll also be using the same aggression with their own kids and with the family members as well. So it's something that's really, I mean, I personally don't encourage at all. What I encourage instead is that you try to understand your child. So one of positive discipline, what it's really based on, is a psychologist called Alfred Adler. And he said many important things, but one of the main things that he said is that all children are trying to achieve one main goal, which is to feel belonging and significance. And what that means is that children are constantly wanting to feel loved and wanting to feel like they are a part of something.
Yeah.
And so when we punish or when we shout or when we say, I can't believe you did that, you're grounded, this doesn't allow them to feel that. And so they start trying to get back at you with other punishment also is not effective in the long term.
Okay.
And that's what people started realizing. And every 2 weeks they have to change what the bribe is, or they have to change what the punishment is.
So everything is sort of builds and builds and escalates.
Yeah.
Okay, just one more thing on the smacking thing, because this is the argument that I always hear that people make, is that if your kid is going towards the stove, and the stove's on, it's hot and stuff. And then to make them, if the kid's like a baby, like a toddler or whatever, to give them like a little tap on the leg or whatever to make them see that that's danger and that's bad. Is that wrong? When you're like panicking, like, oh, well, going near danger, to show them that danger is wrong, or are there other ways that you can deal with that? Or are kids at that age too young to deal with the positive discipline? You need to show them that that's the wrong way.
Okay. Yeah. Honestly, I would say that at that age, they don't understand what is right from wrong. If you're talking about a toddler under the ages of 3, they really don't understand what right from wrong is. They don't understand what no really means. So, you can scream your head off and keep saying no, but they'll just keep going back again because they just like the reaction they see from you. It's not necessarily that they understand that they're in a position of danger. And I think this is something we need to all realize too as parents, because we focus on so many milestones. We focus on the milestones of speech, so they start cooing and then they start babbling and then they start speaking, eventually conversation. Same with the way children walk. They start sitting, crawling, running, walking, then running. And that's exactly how our brain develops as well. And I think a lot of us fail to realize that, our child isn't just born there and suddenly they're going to understand everything we say. It takes time. And the human brain doesn't actually fully develop until a really long time, but the area of...
Sometimes never.
Yeah, mine's still developing, I think.
But the area where that regulates emotions and that regulates our impulses isn't really actually there yet until the ages of 4. So a lot of parents expect, your child not to throw a tantrum in the middle of a supermarket because they want chocolate milk. And actually, he's not able to control himself at this point. So until the ages of 4, your children are not able to regulate their emotions. And sometimes when we understand that, it helps our reaction.
Yeah. Oh, that for sure.
I think a lot of the time when you see a parent, I've been out with my sister before and she's gone crazy and I've been like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. But, gone crazy at my nephew. But I guess that is just like, there's so many pressures on parents and sometimes parents lose it. And that's kind of understandable as well, right?
Definitely, yeah. We're all human beings. I mean, we all lose it at some point.
Yeah. Okay, well, can we come back and we'll talk some more about this? We've got some fantastic points and we want to go definitely and delve into this positive discipline, how parents can use
and also
techniques.
The number one problems as well that parents come to you with. What are the things and maybe easy things that parents can start to implement in their own homes?
And we'd love to hear from you this morning, listening. If you have any questions for Amina, we'd love to hear from you. Get in touch, SMS 1042, tweet at NileFM, or you can get in touch on Facebook. Any parenting issues, child development issues, or ways of disciplining, we'd love to hear from you this morning. Thanks for being with us, Amina.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to come back and talk to you.
Yes, absolutely. And this is joined by Amina Diab, who is a child psychologist this morning. Thanks once again for being here with us, Amina.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark and Sally.
Thank you so much. Now, Amina, we have lots of parents listening, and one of the things that you touched upon earlier was reacting to your child and how to react when your child acts up. So how should parents react?
Okay, let me first start by answering how parents usually do react so that they realize what goes wrong.
Okay.
I want you to imagine something with me. So I want you to imagine that you just had a really long day and you're extremely tired and you come back from work and you come to meet whoever, your spouse, your parents, and you're talking to them about your day and you're just saying, listen, I'm really, really tired. So usually we react with one of 3 things. The first thing is usually sometimes we deny. So, nah, you're just fine. You're going to be okay. Another one is we shame or blame. So we say things like, didn't I tell you not to go to this place? Or didn't I tell you not to drive all the way to... And the third thing is that we constantly try to provide solutions. So things like, it's okay, take a Panadol or go to sleep. And none of these reactions really suffice or really just make us feel any good. And sometimes all we really want to hear is, you do seem really tired. What can you do to make you feel better? And I think that on its own, I mean, if my husband told me that, I'd be like, nah, I'm okay, thank you. So these are the 3 things that we usually do. So let's bring it back to kids. So if a kid comes and he just scraped his knee and he's crying about it, usually what we would say as parents is that we would deny. So, nah, you're okay, you're going to be fine, you're a big boy. Or we would shame or blame. So didn't I tell you not to go on that slide?
Yeah.
And the last thing is solutions. So we'll be constantly, oh, so should I put ice pack on that? Or should I put a Band-Aid on that? And all of this, again, doesn't achieve this feeling of belonging and significance we were talking about earlier. So what do we do instead? We validate their feeling. And I cannot highlight this enough. So what validating sounds like? It sounds like this. You seem tired, or you seem hurt because you just scraped your knee. Are you feeling better? Are you feeling okay?
Wow.
What can you do to help or to achieve this?
Mm-hmm.
And I think by just identifying how they feel and talking about it, you're doing one of two things. First of all, you're achieving that connectedness with your child. So your child thinks, yeah, my mom understands everything I think and feel, even though I don't have to necessarily express myself. And the second thing you're doing is that you're modeling to your child how to express themselves. Because again, remember we said until the ages of 4, children really can't do that very well.
Yeah.
So that's what I always try to encourage the parents to constantly validate your child's feelings. Don't dismiss them, don't shame or blame them, and don't constantly try to spoon feed them with solutions.
Oh wow, it's such a minor adjustment as well. It's just, it's just all it takes is that like change in perspective. And what it is that you need to do to get through to the child, because that's what it is. The parents are just trying to get through to their children at the end of the day and be the protectors and all that stuff.
So so basically, your child comes and they've cut their leg, and you say, yes, you've cut your leg, and that's quite a nasty cut or whatever, and you're probably going to have a bit of pain from that. That kind of thing. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, definitely. That's exactly it, Mark. You'll be a great parent.
Oh. Oh, well.
Oh, Mark, the makings of a great mama over there. Look at that.
Okay. So what else? What other situations would be a kind of a common situation and ways of adjusting little bits of behavior or reactions?
Yeah. Like, what are some of the main things that parents come to you with?
Well, another thing that I always try to advise parents to do is to follow through with whatever consequence they've had already talked about, because a lot of the times, I'm
gonna kill you. Not that one. Not that one. No.
That's not in the positive discipline area.
Not that one, no. But what usually happens is that, it all depends on our mood. Sometimes we're extremely nervous and extremely anxious, so we'll just shout, and we'll come up with punishments on the spot. Yeah, well, no, you're grounded this week. Or, yeah well, you're not going to go out and play with your friends later. Yeah.
So basically, don't deal out any punishments that you're not going to follow through with. So if you say you're not going to use your Xbox for the rest of the night, don't let them use their Xbox for the rest of the night.
Yes, but the only thing that I would have to tweak in about is that you have to agree in advance what the punishment is. You can't just in the spur of the moment, because you've decided to come up with this punishment. It's really not fair for the child, and they'll only act out even more. But if children know what to expect, if you've talked about it and agreed about it in advance, when they're in a good mood, not necessarily when they're just being naughty or acting out, they're more likely to comply to whatever punishment, or I don't like to call it punishment, to whatever consequence it may be.
Okay.
So that's really, so when the kid's in a good mood, you talk about, well, when you're not in a good mood, this is what's going to happen.
Hey, you're in a good mood, I'm in a good mood. Let's talk about those times when things ain't so good.
Well, the thing is, though, we always wait for the child to act out, to suddenly think, okay, yeah, this is my moment of parenting, this is my moment of discipline. And those we know that actually in that specific moment your child is feeling certain things right now, and he's not going to be able to listen to you. He's just...
To be fair, I think those things apply to man and wife relationship as well. Instead of waiting for the bad times to have that row, when the good times are happening, then have that discussion.
Yeah. Just mention it,
Just mention it.
We've got some questions here. I just want to get to some of these. This one here says, what do I do when my kid gets angry when his friends at the nursery take his toy from him? His reaction is that he bites. He's 3 and 3 months.
Okay, yeah, that's very interesting. And again, it touches based on what we were talking about earlier, so it's a great question. Remember, again, we said until 4, children are not really able to regulate their emotions. And again, by 3.3 up until 4, they're not really extremely able to express themselves or extremely verbal.
Right.
So I'm assuming that your 3.3-year-old child wants to say something. So he wants to say things like, hey, that was mine. I played with it first and I want it back. And because he's not able to express himself, the only way he knows how is to use his physical ability to express himself. So it goes straight to the hitting or straight to the biting, because children learn through experience. That's what gets him what he wants, you know?
Yeah.
So I would again go back and model, and I would work on allowing and empowering your child to express himself. So I'd go back and say, hey, listen, I know you're really sad right now because he took your toy from you. What can we do to get it back? Or what can we do to wait for your turn?
Right. So encouraging maybe the child to be in more social situations and then deal with those then and there as they happen yourself as a parent. Because when you send your child off to nursery or to school or whatever, you can't necessarily control how your teachers are going to deal with that sort of situation. So it has to start with you then in the house before it can go further.
Definitely. I'd keep modeling, talking, and constantly teach him to express themselves by expressing your emotions first.
Okay.
Children learn better by what they see, not only what they hear.
Another question here. Hi, I'm a mum of 2. How can I enforce their bond between them and not have them be jealous of each other and fight all the time?
Yeah.
Sibling rivalry right there.
I get that question all the time. And, it needs to start off with you, because sometimes we do things without really intending to, and we create this rivalry between them. So things like, did you finish your plate? Oh, your brother finished it. Why haven't you finished it? Or things like,
little things.
To use
comparing.
the rivalry between them.
Yeah. So no, I'm saying
I'm saying don't do that.
Exactly. So first of all, you need to stop saying that. You need to stop constantly comparing them. Who's gonna run to the car first, or who's gonna get their pajamas on first? All these comparisons are constantly
Who's going to
building
become
up.
a doctor first?
Another one.
Well, I had a friend who grew up in a home situation where the parents were constantly praising one of the children, and it's not that they were horrible to the other one, but just they weren't offering the same amount of praise to the other one. So that also create that kind of rivalry between siblings, where one feels like they're not getting as much attention from the parents.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think sometimes we tend to overpraise too, and that's not necessarily a good thing for any child's development. You shouldn't be overpraising constantly your child.
This person here who said, how can they enforce the bond? So they've already got to this stage now. How do they backtrack on that?
Okay. Well, another thing we always also do is that we always think that we need to interfere. It's up to us as the parent to help them create the bond, when actually if we remove ourselves from the situation and sometimes help them work it out, they'll not only develop the skills to cooperate, to listen, to take turns, but they're also develop this bond of love and care and compassion.
Okay.
That's really interesting. So let them work it out, give them time and give them the tools to be able to deal with that situation, and then let them work it out themselves, right? Okay.
Cool. Awesome.
Some great questions coming in, and we'd love to hear from you as well. If you have a question this morning, SMS 1042, or you can tweet at NileFM or Facebook us. Keep your questions coming in. More from Amina on the way next, by Amina Diab, child psychologist. Some great questions coming through. This one says, how much TV or tablet time is good for 2 to 3-year-old kids? Amina?
Well, this is a very sensitive topic, because I usually say I don't like screens at all.
Right.
Oh, really?
I really dislike screens. They have such negative effects on child development, on their attention, on their eating habits, on their ability to develop language and cognitive abilities,
social skills as well.
But that's
social skills, definitely.
But that's not going to happen.
That's not going to happen. Yeah, let's be realistic.
So how much time is okay, and how much is too much as well?
Okay, well, first of all, before the ages of 2, no child should be watching any screens. That is something that we should all try to do. That should be realistic.
As including television?
Any screens, mobile
wow.
phones, iPads, television, everything.
What do you do with them?
Send them outside.
Yeah, there's so much. But after the ages of 2, I would say 20 to half an hour, 20 minutes to half an hour.
Per half an hour.
More than that, I think it's just, it's going to start becoming a habit, and habits become addictive, and it's going to be really hard for you to stop. It's going to be hard for your child to stop, and it's going to be an endless cycle.
It's sort of
I'm
like...
not sure I'm down with that, I'm with you so far and everything else, but I'm not sure I'm down with the screen time thing.
It's the unofficial babysitter, isn't it? This is the thing, because it's, you can't get your child to stop, and they're crying, and you want them to sit there, and you want them to eat and whatever, and you put the screen in front of them, and they get hypnotized. And they do everything you want them to do.
Nothing wrong with that. Another question here. I want to ask Dr. Amina, what would be the reason a child might wet his bed when he is 10 or 11 years old?
Oh, okay. Well, because he's passed, usually it's up until the ages of 7 to 8, which this is normal behavior, 7 actually.
Yeah.
After 7, this behavior becomes quite unusual. And I would definitely advise her to seek a professional psychologist to figure things out further. I mean, it's not just, I need to know more.
It's not going to be a physical thing. It's more likely to be a psychological thing, though, right?
It could be a physical thing. That's why she
Right,
needs to
okay.
seek
Someone needs
professional
to,
help.
yeah. You can't just assess that like superficially. It's something that has to be
I can't just
looked
read
into.
and yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your message.
Yes, thank you very much for that. Also, hello to this person. It says, what if when I tell my boy I'll be sad from that and he replies, I want you to be sad? How should we deal with this as parents?
Okay, that's hurtful sometimes to
Yeah.
hear, isn't it?
From your child, yeah.
Well, again, let's go back to what I was mentioning earlier about a little bit of theory. So we said that children want to constantly feel belonging and significance. And sometimes when they don't feel this sense of belonging and significance, they think that they can achieve it by doing other things. So
By rebelling.
one of them is rebelling,
Yeah.
actually, and another one is attention. There's actually 4 main things they try to achieve this belonging and significance. And what I see in this parent is that it's the rebellion. So he's trying to help her or trying to hurt his parent the way he feels hurt sometimes. So I would ask the parent to go back and see, why is your child wanting to rebel? Do you have a sibling? Are they being treated equally? Has he just recently went to school? Does he feel like he's not being given the love and care that he used to before? I would go back and assess what's going on.
Sorry, so that could be an issue, like when they start school and they're not having as much parent time as they used to get. Yeah,
Especially if
okay.
they're not prepared for it. Sometimes parents just take it for granted that, it's school time. I'll just tell him he's going to school and, he's just going to be dropped there for 6 to 8 hours and that's it. But, you need to really prepare your children for any change, whether it's just moving houses or going into new school, nursery, going into camp, a holiday, what you're going to do.
Yeah.
The more you prepare your child, the more they know what to expect and the more likely they will comply.
And so this is communication, just straight on communication and acknowledging how they feel along the entire way.
Definitely.
Okay.
I always encourage the best time to do this is right before bedtime. So that 1 hour where, things either can go really messy and you start screaming at each other, or you can start quieting down and have, hey, listen, let's just sit and talk right before you sleep. And the more you talk, the more you involve them, the more you connect with them, I think that's when, you encourage your children to behave the best way they can.
I think I need to take a look at your children to see if they're sitting there they're perfect children. Are they perfect children?
Definitely not. I don't believe that there's a perfect child, and I think that's
they're at home right now watching the iPad.
No, but I think that's one of the main issues too. That we always expect our children to behave perfectly. They can't scream and they can't shout, they can't cry, they can't throw themselves on the floor, but we ourselves, we're not perfect either.
And we do that sometimes as adults.
Yeah, and the more we come to terms with that, the more we start accepting what we cannot change in our children, I think that's when the connection process starts.
Okay. Oh, that's fascinating stuff this morning. We have this question here. It says, my boy 10 gets bullied at school. What can I do? Well, we're going to take a small break for the news and we're going to come back and we're going to discuss bullying and in all the different angles from that. So stick around for that. Amina, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you. You're helping us and so many others. So, we're looking forward to hearing more from you.
With us this morning is Amina Diab, who is here to talk about all things children and parenting, and she is a child psychologist. Good morning.
Good morning, Amina.
Good morning, Mark and Sally.
Good morning.
We just mentioned just before the news this question. My boy, who's 10 years old, gets bullied at school. What can I do?
Now, bullying is a problem, isn't it? It's a serious issue on every front, and it's definitely getting a lot more attention in social media, on every platform, really. So, I mean, what do parents need to know? What can they do if their child is a bully, if their child is being bullied? Floor is yours.
And the telltale signs as well. Yeah.
Well, bullying is a huge issue, and I can go on and on and on and on, but I don't think you guys will be too happy to be talking too much. But initially, if your child is being bullied, you need to talk it out with them. I think what we usually end up doing, because we are so hurt by it, is that we always try to find them solutions. So, you should go to them and talk to them, and you should try to be assertive and try to
tell your teacher.
And sometimes that's really hard for the child to do. So initially you need to let them vent all these feelings out to you. You need to be their area of comfort. And then we need to start working on assertiveness skills. And if the parent finds that hard to do with the child, then they need to seek professional help so that they can start talking to somebody and empowering them on how to do that.
This is the child standing up to the bully.
Yes,
in the situation where he's being bullied. Okay,
definitely. Another thing I think is what's very important to try to tell your child if they are being bullied is to try to look at it from the other perspective of the bully. Try to make them understand that the bully has problems themselves too, which is usually mostly the case because, for a child to be so aggressive with another child, it just shows that, there's so much going on at home or so much going on personally. So if you try to bring it from the other perspective, put them in their shoes and try to make them realize that, they're going through a lot. So there's really, it's much easier said to say there's really nothing to be scared of. It's easier for them to realize this when they put themselves on the other person's
This person isn't
shoes.
better than you, bigger than you.
Yeah.
This person has a problem. Is a problem.
It's a problem.
Yeah.
And the more you realize that it's a problem, you can start sympathizing.
Yeah, there it is.
You can synthesize. You can sympathize.
Synthesizer. Yeah, so that's one thing. Another thing I think that's also very important for parents is that a lot of parents tell me, I'm completely fine. My son is not a bully. He's not a victim of bullying. So we're cleared out. We're completely fine. And actually, I want to tell you, the parent, no, actually, you have so much power in your child's hand that you're not utilizing.
Okay.
Your child is the bystander. So if your child is the third person watching the bullying incident happen, he's the most powerful person that can come in and help the victim because he's the bystander. So I really encourage parents to talk to their children, whether they're being bullied or not, about what bullying is, about how the effects of bullying, as far as it can create depression in children, and as small as it can make them, cry. And
I'll just stop you there because this is also something that Wallet was talking about as well. I need advice on how to control my 6-year-old son's anger as he's started to lose friends, and that kind of comes into, I think, a little bit of that sort of how to help with that.
Yeah, because sometimes bullies have a lot of anger, which is what propels them to be bullies. Yeah,
not that this person is perhaps a bully, but he could move on to that later.
Yes, definitely. So if your child is being the bully or bullying, and he is relieving all this anger, it's usually because of an underlying cause. So you as a parent, I think you would be the most person able to realize what this cause is. You talk to your child about it. You would talk about feelings, and usually, it's so much easier said to just go up to your child and say, "Hey, listen, what's going on?" And we'd expect the perfect response back. "Oh yeah, I'm just crying because 1, 2, 3." But usually that's never the case. So what I usually encourage parents to do is don't just jump straight at the question. Dance around it.
Okay.
Ask your child how was school today? What's going on? What was your favorite part of school? What was your least favorite part of school? And from that, you'll get indications of what's really going on. Also, the closer you are to the teacher of the child, the better you can both communicate about what's really going on.
What do you have to say to defensive parents when they do get called in? Because I know a lot of teachers who say, try to speak to parents about, the child has an issue, for example, or whatever, and parents go, "No, my child doesn't have that problem. It's your fault. You're not doing this. You're not doing that." So what would you say to parents who are like that, because it doesn't actually help the child or the situation in the end, does it?
Yeah, definitely. I think it definitely depends on the situation, but I think if you're constantly on defense mode, sometimes your child is calling out for help, and the person that happened to realize it is the teacher. And if you're not going to reach your hand out and try to grab your child's hand back, I think you'll be doing much more damage than good. I think
rather than ignoring it and pretending that your child is an angel.
Yeah. And I think it's very hard for any parent to
hear criticism
about their child, because they're your babies, they're your angels,
and it looks bad on you, and you think, well, what have I done or whatever? But
what am I not doing?
What am I not doing? I guess, yeah.
I see, and that's the thing. If I can just add that we take it so personal, as you said, Mark. We take our child's behavior so personal, and it's related to us. But actually, if we look at it, that your child is not try to think of it as your child is not, for example, a liar, or your child is not, for example, aggressive, but he did an action of lying, or he did an action of aggression. You eliminate, that label of labeling your child and therefore taking it personally. Just think of it as an action, not necessarily a trait or a character.
Yeah, they lied one time, they're not a liar.
Exactly.
Okay, that's really interesting. Reem, I hope those comments about anger and stuff helped for you as well. You've got a 10-year-old with a quick temper and a quick hand, apparently, and you wanted to know about how to alleviate and help with anger and frustrations. So I think some of the things that Amina was talking about there will help you with that. Coming down to Imani, who says, I'm an auntie to a 4-year-old niece who lives with me.
Yeah, so she likes to have everything to herself, even if it belongs to somebody else, and she doesn't like to share anything with anyone, even kids her own age. I don't want her to grow up and to be possessive or selfish. So what should I do?
And we'll package this up with another one that says, how can you deal with stubbornness?
Yes.
So I think these things all go together.
Yeah, definitely. I'll start off with the sharing one, because I think also, again, it's another developmental process for children to be able to understand that this object that they're holding right now can be shared between one another is hard for a child to grasp. So I think it's developmental. I don't encourage children to really share up until the ages of 3 to 4, because I think that when you start enforcing them to share an object that they're learning or exploring with, I think you're teaching them that your rights are not really valuable, or what you want is not really important. So if she is like that, I mean, it's completely fine. It's age appropriate. But after the ages of 4, I would not use the word sharing, because it's a hard concept to grasp. I would use the word of taking turns, because when you take a turn, it's something more concrete to understand. So they can physically see that I will hold it for a bit, and then another child will take a turn and hold it for a bit too.
Right. Taking turn, it implies the rotation, doesn't it? So it'll come back to me. Exactly. So you have the anticipation.
Sharing is a really abstract concept that I don't think a lot of children are able to understand at the ages of 4.
And it sounds like it's going to go away.
It's quite hard for adults to understand sharing as well, I think. Well, some great points and some great questions. Keep them coming in this morning.
Yeah, we'll get to the stubbornness question in a minute.
Yes,
as well.
We'll come back to stubbornness. We must just take a quick break here with Amina Diab, who's a child psychologist, talking about parenting, and there's been some fantastic information being given out already and some great questions. Thank you to everybody who has sent something in this morning. Stubbornness is one of the things we've been asked about, Amina, and how to deal with stubbornness in your child.
Yeah, well, what is stubbornness first? So stubbornness is basically retaliating or being a rebel to whatever it is that's being asked of them. Mm-hmm. And it depends on the age. The person that asked the question didn't really specify, but generally, children are, after the ages of 4, are trying to impose themselves or trying to prove to themselves, to the world, hey, listen, I'm out there and I have a personality and I can say no if I want to.
I'm a real person. I'm a real human being.
I have an opinion. So sometimes we need to give that to them, and we give that to them by the way we ask our questions. So usually what we do is we demand things of them. So things like brush your teeth or go to bed. And the first reaction would be, no, I'm not going to do that. You can't make me. And if we just change our question or the way we ask things, it would make the biggest of difference. So instead of telling them, we ask them. So what time is what do we need to do before you need to go to sleep? Or is there everything that have you got everything covered for next day's school? Asking
because they feel like, because I guess if you say to them, what do you have to do, it's like they're pleasing you by telling you what it is they have to do, rather than being told what they
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And another thing as well that you're doing is that you're making them feel, again, back to being belonging and significance. You're making them feel important by having a say. I think it's time to do whatever. So it seems like it's actually their idea, not yours. And then they will be more likely to comply to that.
This works in marriages as well.
Yeah.
Everything applies to marriages.
Yeah. Isn't it weird how close marriages and parenting is?
Yeah. Wow. It's amazing. Someone should write a book about this. So there's that. So, but what happens when you say something like, come here? How can you say something? This is, I hear parents say this all the time. Yalla, ta'ala, come on. Yeah. How do you say that in that kind of way? How do you say come here in an inclusive kind of way?
Okay, well, usually, I mean, again, children learn from experience, so usually come here is followed by I told you so, so children learn to fear the word or not respond positively to the word come here. So instead, I would say, if you're insisting on saying come here, listen, come here, I want to understand you, or come here, I want to talk to you about something, or come here, I want to try to reach out to you. and that will automatically make the child think, okay, yeah, I want you to know how I feel, so I'll come and sit with you. But if it's always like, yalla, come here, let's do this quickly, children will learn to fear that, and they will learn to fear us, and then just automatically say no.
How do parents, because parenting is like the most difficult job in the world, and you've got to be thinking about you're balancing so many different things, and perhaps you're working, and perhaps you've got
like spinning plates, isn't it?
Yeah, and perhaps you've got all the your other children doing different things, and you've got you've got food to prepare, you've got this to do. How do you keep all those things in your mind? Dr. Amina says that I've got to do this, and I've got to ask it in this way, and how do you keep all that in and manage all those different things?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really hard. I mean, parents struggle so much, and I always say that for any parent to be able to give anything to their children, they need to be giving themselves first. So if you're constantly feeling overwhelmed, or if you're constantly feeling anxious, and you have too much on your plate, you will never be able to give the type of love or the type of care that you want to give to your child. So, parents, you need to take care of yourself too. You are the basis, you're the foundation, you're the skeleton of this whole family. Mm-hmm. And if you don't take care of yourself, you won't be able to do that to your kids either. How to remember these tips that we're talking about? I always like to write things down, and I always like to prepare what I'm going to do. So, the night before, we talked about so many things, and obviously it's almost impossible and unrealistic to ask everybody to do everything. But I'll ask you guys to just pick one thing that you want to come home with after this conversation, and dedicate yourself to at least 3 days to follow through with whatever it is. So whether it's the asking versus telling, whether it's trying to validate your child's feelings, or many other things we talked about today.
Now, this interview is going to be available online today. So if you're thinking, oh my goodness, I can't remember a single thing,
you'll be able to go back and listen to it.
Yes, you'll be able to go back and listen to it. And we're going to give you more details about how to contact Amina and find out more as well in a little while. Yeah,
but first as well, another thing that came up, this person says, can we please talk about shyness in children, and how to deal with that?
Yeah, I think that's something I think we need to discuss, because I think parents don't want to accept sometimes that this is a personality trait and we need to work around it. So instead of trying to change it, what tools can we help our child to start adapting to the world with their trait of being shy? Mm-hmm. And one of the main things that causes shyness is the lack of expecting what is going to happen. So instead they cling on to the only thing that they're so secure with, which is their parents, the mom or dad. Right, okay. So they won't be talking that much, they won't be exploring, they won't be leaving their parents' side because they don't know what to expect. But
it's outside their comfort zone.
Definitely.
Okay.
But if you beforehand, before any sort of change, even as minor as going down into the car to the supermarket, try to talk to your child and prepare them about what's going to happen. So Sara, for example, listen, we're going to go in the car, we're going to go to the supermarket, mommy wants to get a few grocery stuff, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items, and then we'll be back. That helps them to start.
So they've got everything.
Yeah, I mean, you'll be doing a lot of talking. It's a lot of stuff to be said, but it really helps the child to know what to expect. And, let's assume, they're going to nursery or they're going on a play date, and they've been told that they're going to meet their friend Mansour for a play date. The child will be thinking, okay, I know Mansour, I was prepared for it, and I remember last time Mansour, for example, snatched my toy without asking, so this time I'll be prepared to, use my words this time. Or
that's interesting, because you're saying about telling your child that this is what we're going to be doing, we're going to be going to the shops, we're going to be buying this many items. That's also how I think a lot of, they deal with anxiety in adults as well, by always knowing what's your surroundings and where you're going to be and what time you come. People need to know that kind of stuff, and it's interesting that helps also in parenting too.
Yeah, definitely. We usually, we approach children as, they're these beings that belong to us, but actually they have a personality of their own too, and we need to nourish that and take care of it. We don't just drag them with us everywhere we go. They need to be told, and they need to be treated like human beings and taken their opinion every now and then.
Yeah.
I don't remember ever knowing where I was going as a kid. I just remember being pulled along by the side of my mum, like hanging onto a coach, thinking, like, we're getting on a bus in a minute. Okay.
Yeah, and there's a difference between sharing and telling your child what you're doing, right? Like, this is what we're going to do, this is what we're going to do. It comes back to what you were talking about in the sense of being inclusive with your child and how they feel and their opinions and stuff, even if it's a simple task like going to the supermarket and buying something.
Definitely. And when you can, even if it's something as small as, so when we go to the supermarket, would you like to buy apple juice or would you like to buy pineapple juice? But allowing them to have a say in anything, even as minor as that, makes them more likely to feel comfortable with whatever setting you will provide.
But not just saying, what would you like to buy?
Yeah.
Because that way, yes, limit it to
you'll
something.
go home with like 7 kilos of chocolate. Yeah.
Hello to Nessie, who says, my niece has just turned 4. We just discovered that she is diabetic. How do we handle the situation emotionally? Being a child and a patient is hard for the child to grasp.
Well, I would really encourage you to really, say it to your child, and you need to be as honest as you can. I think when they start realizing or finding out why they're different from their friends or peers rather than you, it will create a lot of issues emotionally for them, trust issues specifically.
But don't try and hide it from them.
Definitely not. I think you'd be surprised with how much your child can understand at the age of 4. And the more honest you can be, the better it will be for your child, and the better and the more likely your child will accept the situation. And again, you're talking to a 4-year-old, so I would turn it into a fun game. I would make it something interesting, something exciting. Bring along a few toys when they have to. I don't know what type of diet.
We don't know what kind of diet.
Yeah, we don't know the full details. So
well, bring along toys when you can, if you need to go to the doctors or.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're going to come back one more time. So if there's any last minute questions, we'll cover a few of those in our next segment, and also tell you how you can get in touch with Amina and all the information that you need.
All the questions, everything like that that we don't have time for, you can direct to her. So yeah, we'll be coming back and we'll be doing that.
Thanks for being with us, Amina.
Amina, we're loving this.
Yalla, we're on. What I meant was, of course, would you like to come on to the radio to discuss some more things? Amina.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm doing positive enforcement of we're on.
Yeah, Mark's learning. He's doing. He's like, I'm not going to say yalla anymore. I'm going to include everyone.
Amina Diab is with us, a child psychologist, and it's been a fascinating morning.
Yeah.
Thank you to everybody who sent in questions, and thank you, Amina, for answering them so brilliantly. What is one or two things that you would say, things that we haven't covered yet, which you think are very important for parents to take away from this morning?
Well, I think just to end it on a positive note is to always try to be positive in front of your children. They take information from what they see more than from what they hear. So always be the best model parent that you can be. Always try to think of your child's behavior positively. So he's not a stubborn child, he's a strong-willed child. Or he's not a hyperactive child, he's just full of energy. Or she's not shy, she just, she's very observant or well observant. When you try to change that perspective for you, it helps you to achieve, or it helps you to tackle whatever behavior it is that you want to.
And words reinforce certain behaviors in children as well. So if you call a child a liar, they're more likely to be a liar because they believe that about themselves.
Definitely.
Is that true?
If you're constantly labeling your child, even if it's not in front of them, or even if you think, he can't understand, he's only 2, and I can speak to him in front of the teacher, or I can speak about him to my friends, actually they really can, and they're grasping all of that information. And if this is what you believe their potential to be is, that's what they will live up to. Unlike if you're constantly talking to them about how capable they are, how motivated they can be, how able they are to tackle anything that they need to.
Yeah.
And how this
so
can
the
be achieved.
children will work up to what you expect of them. So whether it's negative or it's positive, the children will become what you whatever standard you set for them, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So positive reinforcement constantly and positivity around them all the time.
Definitely, yeah.
Lovely stuff. Well, a little bit of negativity. It's the end of our conversation. Sorry about that. But if there's any questions that we haven't got through, then you can find Amina where?
How can anyone listening get in touch with you, Amina?
Well, I have a Facebook page, Amina Diab. You can just facebook.com/Amina Diab. I also have an Instagram page, Amina Diab. No?
Yeah, I'm doing it now. I'm
Mark's typing away.
the link,
yeah, we will.
And Amina is spelled Amina.
Yes. Diab is Diab.
Yes.
Lovely stuff. And people can come and find. Well, we'd love to have you on again sometime because it's been a fascinating morning. I know there's lots of people who would like to ask you more questions.
And more
as well.
specific questions as well. So, yeah, hopefully you can get in touch with Amina regarding that. And like we said earlier, this interview will be available online today as well for you to listen back, take notes, and hopefully take something really positive for this to use at home with your children.
Absolutely. If you missed any, you'll be online later on today. And more importantly, here's some positivity as well. Another reason why we want to have Amina back is she brought us some food.
Yeah.
like you knew how to win our hearts this morning.
I know. Not just she's positive parenting us, Mark.
Yeah, I know, right?
This is I've always wanted a mom like you. Thank you.
It's been lovely to have you on, Amina. Have a lovely day today, and best of luck with it.
Yes, we hope to have you on the show again soon.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Sally. It was a pleasure, and you guys are incredible. You make my morning every day. So
thank you. That's really kind. Thank you very much.
Keep up the great work.
Indeed.
I know you wanted to do a word up. We haven't got time today, but next time you can play with us, okay?
Perfect.
All right.
I'll prepare.